Hey, Channel Insiders. I'm your host, Katie Bavoso, and welcome to Partner POV, where today we'll explore the convenience and value of the AWS cost management tool, CloudForecast. If you're scaling on AWS without a full-time FinOps resource, you know how quickly you can get stuck between out-of-control costs and unexpected end-of-month invoices. Engineering and DevOps teams can get out of this conundrum and get the visibility and practicality they're looking for with CloudForecast. To learn more about this startup, I now welcome the CEO of CloudForecast, Tony Chan. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you for having me on, Katie.
Thank you so much for being here. Tony, I have to point out, not only are you the CEO of CloudForecast, but you also co-founded the company 6 years ago, which is quite a while in startup years. I believe that makes you an elder in startup years. So
yeah,
you're very
much.
experienced.
Yeah, quite long in startup years for sure.
So when would you say this was a moment of inspiration in which CloudForecast was born? I always like to think that you kind of had this lightning rod moment. But for you, when would you say CloudForecast was born, and what greater purpose has it grown into?
Yeah, absolutely. So this moment of inspiration was born actually at our first startup that we worked on early 2010s. And at that time, my co-founder, Francois, as a scaling startup growing in many ways possible, our AWS bill was ballooning as well. So at the time, he had the idea, I'm like, hey, I wish I had a really easy and simple tool to help me manage costs while all the technical things I have to deal with. And at that time, a lot of our current competitors actually had a free tool at that time that was just a simple email that let them know how much you're spending. And in less than 30 seconds, he knew exactly what was going on. But the problem was, eventually, as those companies raised VC money and raised a bunch of funds, they started really upcharging that tool and starting to expand their offering a subscription and starting to expand towards Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies and started making the tool very costly. And he pretty much canceled the subscription and it's like, hey, I want to table this and come back to it. Our company eventually got acquired. And then for us, we had a turning point of our careers. We're like, hey, I think we want to do the startup thing again. Let's come back to this idea. So that's kind of like how we pretty much got started, and we came back to the idea. At first, it was a very simple tool and iterated to what it is now today and being able to help mid-market, high-growth startups scaling on AWS get better visibility on their AWS costs.
So I definitely want to talk more about how you're helping those mid-market companies scale in just a moment. But I want to consider those who are watching are anywhere on their AWS journey, potentially just starting out. So I want to know what often makes monitoring AWS costs a struggle for your customers, and how does this become increasingly more difficult as they do scale?
I think time is a big factor, right? Within your organization, we find that more often than not, as you scale and as you grow your company, the first person in line to manage AWS costs and get better visibility into it and answer questions that CFO or CTO or CEO might come down towards the director of engineering, SRE, or DevOps. However, they are tasked to also move the company forward on a technological point of view as well. So it's like, well, where do they spend their time? Do they spend their time on trying to innovate and move the company forward? Or do they take a pause on kind of like, hey, do I take a step back, design reports, extract what I can, extract information needed to kind of give back the information back to the CEOs and the stakeholders and such. So I think that's where the struggle is. It's the time. I think we also find that a lot of tools that are in the market are just overly complex for that set of customers. Unless you have somebody spending full time digging into those financial costs and what's going on within Cost Explorer and such, it can take up a lot of time. So, once again, to go back to time, complexity, and what we focused on is how do we summarize the information so it's very easy to understand for those users.
Tony, I think some people might be listening to us and wondering, well, doesn't AWS help businesses monitor the cost of the tools they leverage from it, like AWS Cost Explorer? How do you respond to them?
Yeah, so we think AWS Cost Explorer is actually great, and they provide a lot of great tools and information back to the end user. However, I think there's a few gaps. One is as you're scaling your business and you have multiple engineering teams and multiple engineering managers trying to keep track and pulse of costs, it can get pretty complex and difficult and challenging for one person to try to extract the information and data needed to make a decision on whatever that may be, maybe a cost overrun or perhaps something got turned off. So I think that's one. I think number two, with Cost Explorer, it can be kind of complex to use and time consuming, right? So I think for us, once again, we go back to summarizing the data. So in less than 30 seconds, you understand what's going on with your AWS costs. So I think there's use cases for Cost Explorer, but what we do supplements a lot with what Cost Explorer does and doesn't actually compete against it directly.
I'd like to get to know the customers that you often see coming in and utilizing CloudForecast. What kinds of businesses and roles are CloudForecast customers in?
Yeah, so a lot of the roles that CloudForecast addresses are folks that are in engineering leadership position or technical positions within their organization. And the reason being is they have the full access to their whole AWS environment. So naturally, we like to joke that they've been voluntold that they're now monitoring, managing, and reporting back on AWS costs, along with their technical responsibilities. In terms of types of companies, the ones that we found very good success in are companies that are just scaling, generally more than 200 employees, multiple engineering teams, multiple stakeholders, C-level executives that are just wondering about AWS costs. So to kind of summarize that, we find that it's a lot of complex organizations with many stakeholders within the organization.
Now, when we first started, you did mention how CloudForecast differentiates itself from some competitors in this space by catering to those mid-market companies instead of the ones that really go enterprise and beyond from there. Can you talk more about the differentiators of CloudForecast from those competitors?
Yeah, there's a few differentiators that we found, and that's kind of like gaps in the market. One, we find a lot of those tools are overly complex with tons of features. And don't get me wrong, those are great features if you have a full-time person monitoring, managing, and extracting the value and data out of it. However, if you don't have a full-time person, all that's going to be going to waste, right? So for us, we focus on simple, easy to understand reports, getting to the root analysis and cause of whatever that might be going with on your AWS cost. So it might be an overrun. So for us, we summarize a lot of data. I think secondly, the other gap that we see in the market is a pricing standpoint. A lot of the tools out there charge a percentage of AWS spend, which can be kind of costly for the end user in itself, right? 1 to anywhere to 8% from what we've seen last. So I think that, asking a company to take that out of their margins with their AWS costs, it's very, very expensive. In addition to, as well, it doesn't act in the best interest. So for us, we focused on flat rate subscription pricing that can be predictable for the procurement team as well. And then kind of going back to the first one, due to their complex feature, a lot of things that they do is catered towards Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies, right? Big companies on that side, whereas we build features that we think that caters back to the end user. If you're a mid-market size company, high growth startup, don't have a full-time FinOps resource, and you just need something to kind of help supplement what you're doing and to save you time as well.
So, Tony, how do CloudForecast tools prioritize the needs of VARs and resellers in the IT channel who specifically serve the mid-market and high-growth startups scaling on AWS?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. One is kind of going back to what I mentioned, gap in the market, right? A lot of the tools out there right now are just overly expensive, and it might be a non-starter for a lot of your end users and clients at the end of the day. So I think with CloudForecast, our price point, simplicity, be able to build features that addresses that market, I think it's just another option that you can have at your disposal to serve your end user and client. I think too, also, it's just another set of features that you can have as a VAR and reseller to just have really good educated conversation about AWS costs back to your user. Like you might be managing many, many clients on your side, and you just want a simple way to track and just have good conversations. We can build features, and we also have features internally that can serve you so you can focus and kind of serve your end user better. I think third too, one thing that we've seen too, it's like with visibility of AWS costs and trust in it, it ends up adopting more AWS services, the end user in itself, right? Because they have trust in how much they're spending and where they're spending. So one thing that we've seen is end users end up spending more in AWS on the long term because they feel confident on where they're spending and how they're spending internally as they adopt more AWS services on their side. So you can also count on that with CloudForecast.
How well does CloudForecast integrate into a customer's environment, and how quickly can they anticipate results once implementing it?
It could be really fast. So the initial sign-up process, we've kind of calculated, it takes less than 4 minutes to sign up.
Ooh, yeah.
So it's pretty simple. We have a CloudFormation template where user can leverage, and it just creates a IAM role that gives us read-only access to an S3 bucket, and it's also creating what it's called a cur file, which is the AWS billing file. And that's really it. And it's a few clicks and few steps. We try to grab as little permission as possible to be secure as possible, and also to just follow AWS best practices when it comes to things like this. So it's pretty fast and pretty quick in terms of getting set up with a free trial with CloudForecast.
I love that you mentioned the security in mind of that too, which is obviously something that's huge nowadays and always a part of a conversation when talking about new tools. But I want to hear this put into practice in the real world. So Tony, can you tell me a success story in which CloudForecast helped a company grow or innovate beyond the wall it may have been hitting?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of our users come to us saying, hey, we would love to give better visibility to our engineers so they can own their costs, keep tracking their costs, and see and catch potential overruns. So we have this one user out in India, and they're an e-commerce company, and it's a pretty big company, very complex, about 30 different engineering teams. And they came to us with that exact use case and problem that they want us to solve. Within 2 weeks, we started getting responses from those engineering teams asking questions about AWS costs and seeing engagement internally about AWS costs, which I thought was really cool because before they used CloudForecast, no one was really watching the bill as closely as they should have. And then after CloudForecast, our champion at this company mentioned, hey, we're starting to have really great conversations about AWS costs. People in Slack are starting threads about AWS costs, and there's a visibility that they didn't have before. So for us, that's a successful use case is we are seeing us and what we provide drive engagement and discussions and socialization of our costs or AWS costs back to the end user, which I think is really neat to see.
That is really wild to hear about. You always know that something is successful when the Slack channels start going off about it. So
Yep.
Hats off to you on that. Tony, as the CEO and co-founder, what's one of your favorite features of CloudForecast? Or maybe one your customers often get excited about that they didn't expect to?
One of my favorite features is called the monthly financial report. So one problems we see with especially complex organizations with multiple stakeholders is like, how do you align C-level executives, VP, SVP, finance team, engineering team to have a single source of truth to start having discussions around their AWS bill and invoice, right? Without CloudForecast, it might be the engineering trying to figure out, okay, how do I design this? What do you care about? What are the numbers? What are the questions you're looking to answer? So we have this feature called the monthly financial report, which we essentially dump everything into a big Excel file and design in a way where users can get everything they need to know about their AWS costs on a monthly aggregate basis. And it's really easy to understand for C-level executives, VPs, that just want a monthly overview of what's going on with AWS costs. I think it's neat because we see users bring this into board member meetings, bring into planning meetings, so they can just throw it up on a big screen and just kind of run through, hey, AWS costs are going up and down here and there, reasons why, and just be able to just extract information from it, right? And it's automatic, and it comes every month in the beginning of the month when the AWS invoice arrives. And CFOs love it, CTOs love it, CEOs love it, because it's just a really great way to align the whole organization to start talking about AWS costs.
So Tony, for those who are listening and going, this is absolutely something I need to explore, where can they go to learn more about CloudForecast and get in touch with you?
Yeah, there's two ways. One, you can go to our marketing website, which is www.cloudforecast.io. There's a lot of information in there, kind of giving you guys use case and also case studies of where we've been successful. Or two, you can reach out to Francois, my co-founder, and I at founders@cloudforecast.io. So what we like to do, especially on the first call, is just to understand and learn more about your business and see if we can actually be a use case and provide you value. And that's kind of like our motto. We want to be fair and honest business owners on our side. So for us, if we don't think it's a good fit, we'll let you know, and we would recommend, XYZ or something else. But for us, we want to ensure that we have happy customers, ensure it's a good fit, and we can actually bring you value.
Oh, I love that. Tony, thank you so much for joining me today to tell me about CloudForecast and share your thoughts and your expertise with our audience. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks to our audience for joining us. For more episodes of Partner POV, check out channelinsider.com. Once again, I'm Katie Bavoso, and I'll see you next time.